mean, you're the father of the internet. You have to succeed. Everybody now learn how to make a Zoom call.
Well, thank you. I apologize for being a bit.
No, never mind. I'm teasing you because I have a great admiration.
Well,
I can't believe that you are so elegant, even in a video call. Always.
Well, this is my trademark three-piece suit. So
I know.
The only thing that is missing, I suppose, is that I have to confess it's not Italian. So I should go and get an Italian three-piece suit to wear.
Yeah, I can recognize your studio. I was there a couple of years ago.
Oh, well, yes, of course. You were down in the basement. So
yeah, I remember.
It hasn't changed. It's still right. Ego all in the background.
And you are not changed either. You just look in a great shape, even though you had the COVID-19.
I did. That's correct.
It was so short here. I mean, you have been sick like for 5 days only?
No, it went on longer than that.
Longer, because I followed your illness via social media. And it's like a week, no, longer.
It was more like 4 or 5 weeks to recover.
4 or 5 weeks. So it was complicated.
But it was, the symptoms weren't serious. It's just that they were debilitating. I was very tired.
Yeah.
So it took a long time, slowly, to get back to normal energy level. And they said that was a common problem for people with COVID. But the good news is I didn't have to be hospitalized or anything.
Yeah, great news. Yeah, I know. You were sick also with your wife, I read.
Both of us came home in March of 2020 from London, and I'm sure we brought the COVID virus with us.
Probably.
So we were both sick at the same time, yes.
Yeah. And are you vaccinated now?
Yes, I've been double vaccinated with Pfizer.
Very good. Which one? Moderna?
The Pfizer.
And Pfizer. Because, like people is choosing the best vaccine. Now they like Moderna more than Pfizer, more than AstraZeneca.
Well, remember that all of them are intended to stimulate your immune system to generate antibodies. And I think, the numbers are essentially the same. They're all in the 90% plus range. And so I think any of them would be reasonable.
How is life now in the United States? Are you over the pandemic already? I mean, stores are open and people are going around, the restaurants, the bars. How is life there?
I'm sorry, Ricardo, I didn't understand the question.
How is life now in the United States? Is start being normal again?
Oh,
there is a new normal?
Yeah, we're seeing a considerable reduction in the infection rates. We're certainly seeing a much lower death rate. Some people are being permitted to go without masks as long as they've been vaccinated. Of course, we don't have a label, saying I've been vaccinated or not. And so we have to trust people that if they haven't been vaccinated, they'll still wear a mask. Out of courtesy, we still wear masks when we go to closed areas. But recently we had dinner for the first time in a restaurant. So the answer is that here in Northern Virginia, anyway, we're seeing a return to more normal practice.
Yeah, it has been, first of all, I didn't say hello to my Italian fellow following this Tech Talk, which is our daily appointment, daily show about technology, future innovation today with my friend Vint Cerf. I couldn't stop by saying hello and welcome to this show, Vint. Thank you again. Thank you for everybody for following the show. We're going to talk about technology, innovation, and future. The first question, Vint, is going to be, it has been a terrible year for the world, but a terrific year for the internet. Without the internet, we were lost.
That's a very interesting observation that you're making. And the reason it's interesting to me is that we had a worse pandemic in 1918. And we didn't have the internet in 1918. So people survived. So the first observation is that this pandemic could have been survivable without the internet because we have a worked example. On the other hand, the fact that people could work in the way that we're working now was very helpful because a certain fraction of the population could function almost normally. On the other hand, this pandemic was like a huge spotlight because it showed weaknesses in our supply chains, and it also demonstrated that some work cannot be done remotely. And so there are whole swaths of the population whose work required proximity to other people failed because they couldn't be in proximity because of the transmission of the virus. And so we could see how unequal the impact of the pandemic was on different parts of our population, whether it was people with different kinds of work, people with different economic capacity. We even discovered people with different ethnic backgrounds or racial backgrounds had different responses to the virus. And so this inequality simply reinforces my concern and desire to find ways of creating a more equitable society for everyone. And that, of course, involves the internet too, because the internet is a powerful enabler. But if it isn't there, or if it isn't accessible, or you can't afford it, it doesn't help. And so how do we make it? How do we solve those problems? How do we make it an enabler for everyone? That's the challenge.
You think that the internet, the right to be connected, can be a fundamental right, like the freedom of speech, like a constitutional right? You know, there has been proposals in the past. Also, now in Italy, there is a proposal to amend the constitution to have a constitutional right to be connected.
So I got into quite a debate on this topic in a New York Times editorial several years ago. And I took the view that we should not imbue the internet as a human right. But let me explain why. I believe that the right to communicate, the right to access to information, the right to assemble is fundamental. I believe that. I'm a citizen of the United States. We have the First Amendment, and we believe in it. The reason that I don't want to elevate the internet too high up is that there may be some new technology that comes along later, which is even better. It's sort of like in the 19th century, having a horse turned out to be pretty important. In the 20th century, it was less important because you had 256 horses in your garage in the Ferrari that you have sitting there. So I don't want to imbue the technology over much. On the other hand, I completely agree that the right to speak and to hear and to get access to information and so on, which is facilitated by the internet, is absolutely essential. If somebody had access to the internet and someone took that away, that's a violation of your rights. So I'm trying to have a more nuanced response to the question, but because I believe that internet as an enabler is vital to our current society.
So you said that you don't want to stick with the technology because maybe there is some better technology coming from the future. But what can be better than the internet? That, I mean, you are one of the father of the internet because of, fundamentally of the protocol TCP/IP in 1973. It was correct.
That's correct.
You connected the whole world. What can be better? The transmission of bits through minds without wires and without everything? Well, what can you imagine better of the internet?
It's very funny, but let me remind you that it's been evolving over time.
You know.
So access to the internet in the early 1990s would have been by dial-up, because that's we had modem.
Was there,
and you plug in your telephone handset. In 10 years later, you had optical fiber, you had Wi-Fi, you had a bunch of other access methods that weren't available before. And so that made the internet better. So imagine as time goes on, now we have Elon Musk and the Starlink satellite system is going to make internet even more accessible than it has been in the past, because it might make it accessible in rural areas that would not be economically feasible to pull fiber to. Again, there are all kinds of issues about whether that will turn out to be an affordable service for everyone or not. That depends a lot on the economics. But the point here is that this system will keep evolving, just as the telephone system has evolved. Certainly in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell was not thinking about mobile phones. So
like the telegraph also,
yeah,
the telegraph.
Whatever we call the internet,
Yeah.
it has the potential to keep improving. And at some point, there may be something different, some new set of protocols that work even better. I can even give you an example of that, because those of us who've been working on the interplanetary extension of the internet have had to abandon TCP/IP and adopt a whole new suite of protocols to cope with the variable and very large potential delays in space communication, because the distances are so great and the speed of light is so slow, to say nothing of other kinds of disruption like rotating planets and satellites that orbit and go out of radio contact. So depending on the circumstances, the thing which makes the internet today may not make the internet of tomorrow, because we need a new set of technology to make it work.
Good, great. And so during the pandemic, I think that the network that has been built, called the internet, showed a great resilience, because suddenly the people started being connected all the time, every hour, and the network could show this kind of resilience and never failed. It was good, impressive.
It really has been quite astonishing. But if you've tracked the internet since its original initiation in 1983 is when we turned it on. It took us 10 years of work to get to the point where we could turn it on. And in that, from 83 to the present, the scale of the system on almost every dimension has gone up by a factor of 1 million to 10 million. So that's 6 to 7 orders of magnitude. There are very few designs that have the ability to scale to that degree. So that's been very satisfying. The other thing that's been very interesting, of course, is the arrival of streaming video. I mean, we're making use of that right this moment, as you can see. But that was a risky thing for some of the providers of streaming video to do. Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, made a big bet that he could deliver streaming video to people more efficiently than sending DVDs through the postal service. And so he spent a lot of money preparing to do that. And the internet, of course, had to increase its capacity to deliver all that. Companies like Akamai built content distribution systems in order to reduce latency and to increase the likelihood of successful delivery of the streaming video, for example. So what we're seeing is a fascinating response of technology to demand. And we're also seeing how demand takes advantage of new technology. Holy cow, I didn't know you could do that. So once we have streaming video going, now all of a sudden we're going in both directions, not just receiving, but we're also sending. And who knows what comes next. So, so my view is that this is a highly dynamic environment, and we will watch it evolve over time, depending on what technology can support.
And now there are almost 5 billion people connected. I think that before the end of the year, we will touch the point of 5 billions. It's huge. What lacks to be done? Well, connect the other 3 millions, 3 billions.
There are a variety of things that are needed to close the gap. The first thing, of course, is to get connectivity, physical connectivity in place, whether that's with optical fiber or coaxial cable or radio links or laser links or something, some communications means. Second, and the satellite systems may turn out to be part of it.
You believe in the satellite internet? I mean, the project you mentioned before by Elon Musk, you believe that it's going to work?
It is running now. It is working. People are testing it. It actually performs quite well. The cost might still be out of reach for some people in the rural areas, so that's an open question. But even when you get access available, now the other thing, of course, is 5G and more towers going further out into the rural parts of various countries will increase ability to get access to the net. But once again, there's an economic question. Can you afford it? What are the prices? And more important, what do you get out of it? So imagine, here's a silly scenario, but suppose you're in Bogota, Colombia, and you need a plumber, and you do a search, and you find out there's a plumber available in New York City. Well, that doesn't help you at all. Or what if you don't happen to speak English and you would like your content to be in Spanish or Italian or French or German or Russian or Japanese or Chinese. So unless the information is discoverable, available in a language you understand, in a form that's usable, the internet may not be very helpful. The gap is not just an access gap, and it's not just an affordability gap. It's also a serviceability gap. Now, one more gap, and that's accessibility. And here I'm thinking about people with motor impairments, vision impairments, hearing impairments, have trouble using the World Wide Web and its applications and the internet because the applications have not been adapted to cope with accommodations that are needed. So in my case, I'm hearing impaired, and so captions for me are very important and valuable. If I were blind, I would want to have audio alternatives to text because I can't see, but I can hear. So, and of course, if you have a motor impairment, a mouse may not be your friend if you can't hold it tight, steady enough to click on something. So we need to work on accessibility. Google has recently announced a wonderful capability to allow users to adapt the visual presentation.
Vint, the connection is poor now. Right now, I can hear you, but I see you in a frozen way. You're like still image. So I don't know if the connection problem, I think it's going to be in Italy, not in Virginia.
Well, I'm seeing you.
How do you see me?
We're both moving in my display. So I don't quite know what the problem was.
So Virginia is better.
Okay, that it may be a local condition if some of the packets didn't get delivered.
Let's try to make something like when the computer doesn't work. You make Control-Alt-Cant and you restart it. Try to exit the room and to enter again. And let's see if your image can start moving again.
Okay.
Okay. Now you move. Ok. Vint Cerf è uscito, come avete visto si era fermata l'immagine, lo potevamo ascoltare, ma non riusciamo più a vederlo, quindi era diventata complicata come conversazione. Dovrebbe rientrare, vediamo se è rientrato. Ok, again. Welcome back.
Thank you. So I don't know what went wrong. Is the video now okay?
It's better?
I can see you and I can hear you. So it looks good on my end. How does it look on your end?
Now it's good. Even in Rome, it's good. So you wrote an open-ed for I think a newspaper, not an American one, about 3 predictions about the near future for the internet. I mean, it's kind of starting from what we learned from the pandemic and what's going to happen. 3 big trends for the net, for the internet. So can you talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. Here are some predictions. First of all, there will be more access to the internet because everyone has recognized the importance of the internet during the pandemic, and people working, people going to school remotely, and remote medicine, remote consultations, e-commerce, and delivery of things that have been ordered. So there will be a real push around the world to increase access to the internet. That's clear. A lot of it will be based on wireless technology, mobile in particular, 4G and 5G. We will certainly see continued effort by the SpaceX company and with its Starlink network to increase access to the internet around the globe, anywhere on the oceans as well as on the surface, land surfaces of the planet. We will also see during this coming decade the serious introduction of an interplanetary extension of the network. It's already working on Mars. It's working on the International Space Station. The technologies will be used in the return to the moon and the ultimate visit to planet Mars. So all of those things will happen. Perhaps the most important thing that will happen, though, is that more people will learn how to use the internet to their advantage. There's a lot of attention being paid to teaching and training and learning, and also helping people distinguish good information from bad information, which is a big challenge right now. Misinformation and disinformation are flooding the network, We have to teach people how to think critically about what they're seeing and what they're hearing.
So do you believe that the solution against misinformation is not going to be technological, but it's in the hands of people? So we have to start learning how to spot the bad information and the good information.
I think that the most powerful filter we can have is the wetware up here. We can certainly try to do things at Google and the other platforms to try to alert you to the presence of bad quality information. We do this by trying to change the rank ordering of the things that come back from search to put poor quality information low on the list and good quality high. But none of those algorithms are perfect. And so we really need for people to recognize that they have to take responsibility for thinking about what they're seeing and hearing, what they accept and what they reject.
So the solution is not the technology. The solution is it's cultural and education, probably. It's even more complicated.
Habitual critical thinking is your friend in the presence of misinformation and disinformation.
And do you believe that the social network and the platforms, generally speaking, have the right to ban someone from the platform forever, like it happened in the United States with your former president?
Well, it's complicated. This is a complicated question. There is enormous pressure to inhibit evident misinformation and disinformation, especially where it is potentially really harmful. For example, misinformation about the COVID-19 and its treatment. And so the platforms, because they have access to the information that's on the platform, are under pressure to try to distinguish and remove information that is deemed harmful. And so this is a tussle between the human rights that we all admire for expression and access to information, and also the prevention of harm. And so here we have to find a way to come to grips with the fact that some information is harmful. And that if you know that, if you have clear evidence of that, perhaps you have a responsibility to try to filter it out. At Google, we would much rather not filter, but make high quality information available for people to decide for themselves what they want to accept and what they want to reject. But there will be regulatory pressure in various parts of the world, Europe included, where platforms will be asked to remove content. So, for example, the right to be forgotten in Europe says that we have to respond to remove things from our index if someone asserts that it's harmful to them, and if we come to a common agreement about that. But that's not my preferred way of dealing with this, is to let people decide for themselves, but we won't get to do that. We will be forced by regulation to do other things.
So the last big regulation about the internet is dated 25 years ago in the United States, Section 230. It's time to make a renewal of that regulations, or they're still alive and working well?
Well, there were great debates over Section 230 and all the way up to our Supreme Court. And I think that the presence of disinformation and misinformation in the United States during the 2016 campaigns, the 2020 campaigns, and of course misinformation about the COVID-19 treatments have led to a renewed debate about how we should deal with that problem. And Section 230 is at least due for a review to figure out whether its current framework is adequate to deal with what we now see are serious problems, or whether or not it needs to be amended. And I don't know how that debate is going to come out, but I think it's appropriate to have the debate given what we have learned over the last 5 or 6 years.
Actually, the debate is open. I've seen also even Facebook officially launched an open discussion about the fact that we need a new regulation. So the debate is open.
Well, I don't know whether we have to have new regulation, but as I say, I think the discussion is timely. And again, I want to emphasize that I'd much rather see people use their heads. But that's work. That actually takes work, and not everyone is necessarily willing to put that work, put that much work into it. But there's such benefit to critical thinking that it's valuable in so many different domains, not just the internet.
In your predictions about the future, in the open-ed I was mentioning before, I read that the third one is about quantum computing. And I've seen that Google, they have an impressive milestones quite a few months ago. And they said that within this decade, it's going to be like commercially available. But actually, for myself, for the people listening to us, what exactly is quantum computing and why so important? There is a simple way to say this story.
Well, we're just about out of time here too. So the short form of this is that quantum computing is simply a more powerful form of computation than what we use today, which is based on binary computations. So we have the ability to solve extremely hard, very big problems using quantum computing very quickly compared to the potentially infinite amount of time it would take to solve using conventional computing. So it's simply a faster way of getting answers, but it only works for certain kinds of problems. And so the real cleverness here is not only building the quantum machine, but figuring out for which problems is it best suited to give us answers. Most of the time, it's an optimization problem, like the traveling salesman problem. The quantum machine can solve that much more quickly. But we have yet to build a quantum machine that can be used to solve those kinds of problems. We're just on the beginning edge of using quantum capabilities and quantum features to do computation. But we're very excited about it. We're expending a lot of resources in Google on this topic.
Very quickly, you've been to Italy several times. And if I say the expression Italian tech, which is the name of our new editorial enterprise, Italian tech, what do you have in mind when they say Italian tech?
Certainly, I would expect a great deal of creativity to arise out of that. I mean, look, the Italian culture has historically been enormously creative, especially in the arts. And so one wonders whether Italian tech will turn out to be technology that enables others who are less creative than you are to do creative things. And I think that might turn out to be a really interesting interpretation of what Italian tech is.
So you didn't mention Ferrari, for instance, just a general concept.
And not just Ferrari, although look, Ferrari, is there anything more beautiful?
I know. And if final quote, your definition of the word future. Now in your life, what is the future? When you accomplish such an important milestones 50 years ago?
I tell you what the future is, a consequence of someone not being satisfied with the status quo. So the future evolves because somebody is not satisfied. Someone is unhappy with the status quo. So I encourage everyone listening to this to be just a little dissatisfied with the status quo, because that will trigger the future.
I love it. But so being dissatisfied, but with your smile. So you have not to be angry. You can smile and be dissatisfied.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much. A big hug from Italy. Also to your wife. Thank you for the time you gave us. And hope to be in touch again. Maybe it's the fifth time we have made an interview. I'm looking forward for the next one.
Well, face to face over a nice Barolo.
Do you feel the Zoom fatigue also? Can you feel the fatigue out of the screen time?
Yes, but we can absolutely get together somehow. Surely we
might. We'll make it.
Arrivederci.
Thank you so much. Ciao, Vint.
Ciao.